states like Texas and Colorado and Utah and Alaska and even like Wyoming, where they're electing people like Liz Cheney. How are they becoming so collectivist in their elections, in their electoral? How is the shift of these traditionally conservative, constitutional states moving more and more collectivist? It's something that a few people grasp and know the history of how long it's been working. That's what we're going to talk about today on the Tree of Liberty Society program. Encourage you to please make sure that you are subscribing to our email alerts and our text alerts, and make sure that you grab a copy of Invasions Volume 1 and 2. We have a great bundle going on right now over at the treeoflibertysociety.com. But let's just get right into this, where there was an article published at KSL.com, and it was off of a study based off of a BYU professor's findings recently, where it says that there was the biggest 20-year shift towards the left, towards collectivism, towards bigger government in these states than in previous 20-year periods. Huge shift. Going into the article, it says that Utah went from giving President George W. Bush 66.8% of the vote compared to 26.5% to Al Gore in 2000. Then President Donald Trump received 58.1% and Joe Biden got 37%. So the went basically a 10 point, a little less than, was it 8-point drop from 2000 to 2020, about an 8% drop in people voting Republican. Now, don't get me wrong, voting Republican, how conservative was George W. Bush when it really comes down to it, frankly. But because of the perceptions that he was the conservative choice at the time, kind of dealing with people's perceptions as opposed to the reality, where the perception was that George W. Bush was very, very conservative, and then that Trump was very, very conservative as well. And so why would there be this huge percentage drop in people voting? It goes in and talks about later in the article how Utah is also becoming less religious. So in 1990, 71% of the Wasatch Front residents were members on the records of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and 63% said that they were members. They identified as members of the church. So there was a little bit of a difference, right, between people that were on the records and people said that, yeah, I'm a Mormon, I'm a Latter-day Saint, whatever. Whereas in 2020, 60%. So a 11% drop of people that were on the records of the church in the state of Utah, whereas only 51% of the people in the state actually identified as such. And so they went from, that is a 12% drop in that amount of time. There is and then it goes on to say that they believe that by 2040, only 30%, only 1/3 of the state will actually identify as being a Latter-day Saint. And we're seeing that same thing as just in general. This is Utah being focused on in this report, of course, but just everywhere we're seeing people that identify as religious or as Christians are dropping all over the place, and Utah being predominantly of one particular denomination or belief sect, that is shrinking substantially and exponentially year by year. Isn't that an interesting correlation? We become less liberty minded while becoming less religious. Of course, the collectivist, the people, they're on the political left will like to say that religion is the opiate of the people, that it is controlling, but it is those that claim not to believe in God or in a very loose relationship with God, feel that God's word changes over time, are actually the ones that are dictatorial. And it also talks about how Latter-day Saints themselves are becoming less politically conservative over time. Now, that doesn't happen by accident. You have the current governor, you have previous governors having specific programs where they're trying to bring in, because they know that it is much easier to change a culture through immigration than it is through brainwashing. That takes generations to change people's thinking. And so where they can change it in one generation by just bringing in a new group of people. And by immigration, I'm not just specifically talking about from different countries. I'm talking about people from California, talking about people from different countries, um, and people from other states that they know are going to be more of a mindset that will accept a totalitarian state. And this is not something that just happened in the last 20 years. This is not something that just happened, in fact, in the last 50 years. This in for Utah and the Intermountain West has been something that has been very specific and something that they've been working on for many, many years. And it's something that you can read in depth about in my books, volume 1 and 2 of Invasion. I encourage you to go to invasionbook.com to get your copies of Invasion Volume 1 and 2 to go more in depth and really do an in depth understanding of this coordinated effort to change the culture to accept bigger and bigger government and to get rid of religion generally, and of course, of the restoration specifically. All right. So getting into going back to the 1800s and how this started, and then bringing us closer and closer today on how these people are purposefully. It is not by accident. There are people out there right now telling you that they're adopting the satanic agenda on accident, which is ridiculous and frankly evil of anyone to actually say that, because it is happening on purpose. In April of 1886, John Taylor wrote for the Deseret News. He said, "The scenes which we are now witnessing in the territory are the results of a deep laid and carefully planned conspiracy, which has been in the process of formation for years. Its originators knew the elements they had to deal with, and by cunning contrivance, they have effected a wonderful combination, maybe a secret combination, religious and irreligious, ministers in sacerdotal robes and atheistic scoffers, businessmen of integrity and blacklegs, temperance men and drunkards, men of strict morality, and pimps and harlots are crowded together on the platform they have constructed, and they find no inconvenience from each other's companionship. Each is made to believe that it is to his direct interest to combine to destroy Mormonism." So wherever you're at, whatever the predominant influence in society is going to be where these conspirators direct their activities. And so in Utah, they really wanted to focus on destroying Mormonism or the restored gospel. And so you have these people of religious and irreligious, all these people willing to gather together to be able to have one focus, one purpose, and destroying the religious nature of the state of Utah. And so there were, and of course, this wasn't just, this kind of stuff just doesn't happen by accident. There were groups that were organized to actually move this, what we're seeing today, which is being reported in 2024 on the corporate main corporate media that everybody reads, talking about how a place like Utah is moving towards the left at drastic measures in just a few years. And so in 1872, there was an organization called the Gentile League of Utah that was formed to with its direct organization. This was a secret society. It called itself a secret society, and its absolute directive was to destroy the religious influence in the state of Utah. And then this is in the history of Salt Lake. It says that sometime after this, a secret society was organized in the city and mining camps known as the Gentile League of Utah. Its mission was to break up Mormonism, and made so famous McKean's extraordinary official statement that it was on trial in his court in the person of Brigham Young. So Brigham Young was there on trial, but what was on trial really was just making sure that they could do whatever they could to destroy the Mormon influence in the state of Utah. And so not only was there the Mormon the Gentile League, but there was also another organization that was put together around this time, made up of largely the same individuals. And you see that on the global stage today. Members of the CFR, members of Skull and Bones, members of people that go to the Bohemian Grove, the World Economic Forum, all of these organizations, they have, this is like, the same individuals are part of all of these groups. So this isn't new. This goes back to the 1800s. And so the Gentile League We read also in the history of Utah, it says that opportunity, it was hoped by the leaders of the league, would be afforded at the election associated with the work and purpose of destroying Mormonism, were leading federal officials and prominent at public meetings where its power and purposes were boasted of. Were such men as something goes into judges, the mayor, R.N. Baskin, Robert N. Baskin, um, reverends, and so yeah, people in politics. These weren't people that were just on the fringes of society, that were just these rabid, we hate religion. These were the leaders in society. In fact, you have a federal judge, William Hayden, saying that he declared that if the populace interrupted their program, the streets of Salt Lake would be seen running down with blood. So you have these people that are, of course, tyrannical, and they're accusing the Mormons of being tyrannical themselves, right? This is just this irony that people that were working to defend liberty and the Constitution were being accused of being tyrants by people that say, if you stop us, if you fight against us, there's going to be blood in the streets, you tyrant. We're going to kill all of you, you tyrant. It is just the irony is insane. And those same goals, of course, continue to this day. You have in the 1960s, you have J. Bracken Lee fires Cleon Skousen as the chief of police because he dared to go after illegal criminal activity. And the mayor just happened to be there and get busted. And so they fired him. And then in 2019, Heather Gardner was a candidate for the state senate in the state of Utah against Todd Weiler. Todd Weiler is a member of the organization that calls themselves the Utah Illuminati, or in other words, the Utah Buckshot Caucus. And so Heather Gardner was doing, just going door to door, talking to constituents, trying to get people to vote for her. And she says, quote, I spoke to a constituent yesterday who said that her good friend, Lane Beatty, who was the president of the Salt Lake Chamber of Commerce at the time, he is struggling because they admit their main purpose is to spread out the Mormon influence in politics and to make sure Mormons do not hold office like they're doing in Salt Lake County. So Salt Lake County has basically done away with the Latter-day Saint Christian influence in Salt Lake. And so that is the conspiracy's agenda, is to do the same thing statewide. And that Lane Beatty, as a member of the church, people, just because they're members doesn't mean that they're good and that they're trying to support the same thing as other members. And just because you're not a member doesn't mean you're not trying to support good things as well. And so he admits that is their agenda. The same thing that goes back all the way to the 1860s, 1870s is still in operation today. But they knew at that time, that's why in 1881, they formed the Alta Club, which again, you can read about in Invasion Volume 1, talking about that. The history was to be able to get the mass of the population and infiltrate it, to get it to get on with their agenda, so that today we can see the results that they're talking about, where in 20 years, a huge percentage of the population is no longer religious, is no longer voting pro-liberty, or at least in their mindset. And so this organization that they're a part of is called the Buckshot Caucus. Now, that same exact agenda of the Buckshot Caucus is the same thing I've been talking about. It is, even though they call themselves by different names, they have the same agenda. It's the continued conspiracy coming on, even if they change their names. One of the founders of the Buckshot Caucus is a guy by the name of Carl Downing. It's always these guys behind the scenes that you probably never heard of that are actually the string pullers. And so Carl Downing worked for Gary Herbert for governor, so the previous governor of the state of Utah. And in a Twitter conversation in 2016, he states, quote, statewide, Utah is barely over 50% Mormon and shrinking. Salt Lake City is, Republican and shrinking. Salt Lake is very Democrat and one of the gayest cities in the U.S., and proud of it. Somebody responds to him and says, yeah, I've heard Salt Lake City isn't as Mormon as the rest of Utah. And then Carl responds that that Salt Lake just elected Jackie Beskidsky as mayor, and she's openly gay, and it's pretty great state and getting better. So this Republican conservative trying to fight for gun rights is saying, isn't it great that we're less religious? Isn't it great that we're more pro-sodomite supremacy, and that we are we are less liberty-minded? Even though he's a conservative Republican, it's great that we're becoming more and more Democrat. And as you read about in volume 2 of Invasion, I talk about the influence of the Buckshot Caucus and what they're doing, and how they're doing this, and some of the things that they talk about. And Jackie Buskipsky, who Carl Downing just mentioned, at one of their sodomite supremacy agenda meetings a few years ago, she said,
when we raise the rainbow flag today, that says something to me. That says this is our city, and this is our building, and we are running this city.
And so it didn't take a huge amount of time to be able to do this, but it took organization. It wasn't on accident. It was on purpose. It was people working together for a single agenda to be able to destroy the religious nature of the people, to destroy their culture, and then to get them to be able to easily shift to being pro-tyrant, to be pro-tyrannical. And so we're definitely seeing that and moving that direction. And their goals, as they talk about in this article, by 2040, it'll be even, less than 50%. It'll be 30, 40%. And so if we don't take the opportunity to understand that this is happening on purpose and how it's happening, then we're going to be stuck thinking that we just got to vote harder. And the person telling us that they are pro-liberty, not recognizing that they're a part of these organizations and that they're lying to us, we're going to continue not only perpetuating the same problem, but actually making it worse while thinking we're making it better. So I encourage you to go out and get a bundle copy of Invasion 1 and Invasion 2 to better understand this issue that we're facing and the results, the fruit of this 100 and plus, 50-year effort to destroy the liberty of the people in states and conservative states like Utah, Colorado, which has gone pretty much left as well. And then in states that we think of as being more conservative, Texas is moving in that direction. Alaska is moving in that direction as well. And so if we don't understand what we're facing, then we're not going to be effective. So if you want to be an effective part of this, please pick up copies of those books, get them spread out. We also have bulk discounts, so we get 10% off if you order five or more of them. So we need to get this information out to more people so they understand what's really, really going on. I go into it far more in depth of the history and what's going on currently, and then the solution in volumes 1 and 2 of Invasion. So we want to get those out there, and I hope you'll help us in that effort to spread it out to more people. Share this video out there. We have to stop this secret agenda to be able to destroy the liberty of the people. And if we don't understand, if we just keep on thinking this is just traditional Republican versus Democrat, we are going to be hosed. So please see the seriousness of the situation and work with us to be able to help remedy the situation. Until next time, I am Ben McClintock with the Tree of Liberty Society.